Station number 11. This one is hard to even talk about. The crucifixion. Jesus is nailed to the cross. Naked, nailed to the cross, and hanging there in front of everybody now with nails in his hands and in his feet. The median nerve. There's nerve, I'm not a doctor, but I've read enough to know about this. There's a nerve that runs through the wrist and also through the ankles called the median nerve. And to injure that nerve is one of the most painful things that can happen to a human body. Even during World War II, when the median nerve was injured, I read that morphine would not even cut the pain. It was such an outrageous pain. And the Romans knew how to maximize the embarrassment, the degradation, and also the utter pain. I'd like to say that when Christ was now at this point being put on the cross, it was a symphony of pain that was going through his whole body. Every nerve and every fiber, every fingertip, every part of his whole being was reverberating with pain and agony. They pounded the nails, my guess, is right through. In the palm, yes, but not in the wrist necessarily, but I think right here, because if you put it right there, the nail, there's nothing to hold it. And if you just feel like that, there's no bone mass or tendons to hold it. It would just, the nail, when the weight of the body would pull down, the nail would slide right out through the fingers. But if you put the nail here, it's still in the palm, but now it's going through a mass of bones. And if we put it right through there, it can hold a lot of pressure. So I think that that nail went probably right through that part of the hand, and it would cause the most excruciating pain. Imagine a nail probably this big around with a sledgehammer, sledgehammering that right down, wham, wham, right through your hands and then through your feet where also the median nerve would be. Now, they show oftentimes you see pictures in the Bible or in picture books of Jesus having a little footstep that he's standing on. We don't know that that happened. One of the reasons that people do that is because if you let someone just hang on the cross like this without any other way of support, you stretch the diaphragm to such a degree that they can't get up to take the pressure off. The diaphragm won't work and you'll suffocate. In a matter of minutes, you would suffocate on the cross if you were only hung by your arms and left to hang there. Death by suffocation. But they didn't want you to die right away. The Romans were cruel and vindictive, and they wanted you to suffer for as long as possible. So they would put nails through your feet. They would bend your knees up a bit, put the nails through your feet, or put a little pedestal to sit on, or a little step for your feet to be on, because that way, when you start to suffocate and you can't breathe, you could push yourself up on that little pedestal, or by putting pressure on the nails in your feet, just to raise up enough to catch your breath. No matter what's happening, you're sliding up and down on this rough beam of wood with a back that's already ripped to shreds, and you can't breathe, and you're down like your arms are pulling like this, and it's pulling on the median nerves, and you can't breathe. And you have to raise yourself up to get a breath, so you put your weight on those nails in your feet, and you raise up just enough to catch your breath, and then the nails in the feet hurt so bad you gotta let go, so you come back onto the nails in your hands. We read in the Bible of the 7 short words of Jesus on the cross. Short indeed. Given through gasps for a little bit of breathing that he could do. One of the significant ones, his mother's there. And he looks down and he realizes she has no other sons. He is her only son. And she's going to be left destitute without a husband and without a son. Joseph has died by now, and Jesus is going to be dead. And not thinking of himself, thinking of his mother, he says, "Woman, your son," with his eyes moving over to John, the youngest of the disciples. John was there with Mary at the foot of the cross. Your mother. In other words, Mary, you take John as your son. And John, you take Mary, my mother, into your home to be your mother. And in doing so, he gave Mary to all of us. John represents all disciples. And Jesus gave Mary to John. In a way, we extrapolate that. He gave Mary to all of us, his disciples. And Mary is mentioned twice in the Gospel of John. She's mentioned as the woman at the wedding of Cana, And now he's mentioned, she's at the foot of the cross also, woman, your son. He calls her woman. I think, again, that's going back to Genesis 3:15, because everything 3:15 said that there will be enmity between the devil and the woman, and between her seed and your seed, and you will bruise his heel and he'll crush your head. That's happening right now. Why do you think Jesus looks at his mother and says, woman? Because this is the new Eve and the new Adam at a new tree. But this time it's a tree of death, but it's going to reverse and bring about life. And John and Mary are there at the foot of the tree. And again, I mentioned that picture of Mary at the top of Calvary with a sword in her chest, where she's watching her son die on the cross in such an agony and humiliating, degrading way. Mary is experiencing what Simeon the prophet said, the sword will pierce your soul also. He cared for others right to the end, praying for his mother. Mary bookends the life of Christ. How important is she, especially in the Gospel of John? John bookends. The beginning of Jesus' earthly ministry is Mary there as the woman, as the intercessor, doing miracles for the wedding guests of who we are, the wedding guests of the ultimate wedding feast. And now she's referred to as woman again at the very end of Jesus' earthly ministry. She bookends his whole earthly ministry. And she is there again, in a way I see offering, saying, I'm giving up my son. I'm giving him away. I'm giving him to his Father. I'm giving him to the sacrifice. I'm giving him to all of those who will call him Lord someday. Mary's giving her son away. Now, this is the highest point for Jesus. You think that this is the lowest, but John uses the language that Jesus says that when I am raised up, I will draw all men to myself. That is language of royalty, of a king assuming the throne, being raised up to be seated on the throne, and when he does, he brings his people all to him. Jesus doesn't see this as a bad thing. Yes, we're right now imagining the pain and the sorrow of it and putting ourselves in his mother's eyes, but imagine Jesus said that when I am raised up, meaning to be on the cross, that I will bring all people to myself. This is the highest moment, in a sense, for him. He is now, at this very moment, displaying his extraordinary, infinite love for us. He's not hanging on the cross against his will. Like Isaac, he could have fought and said no, but Isaac willingly went to the sacrifice, and he didn't have to die. But Jesus, the eternal Son of the Father, the only begotten Son, willingly goes to the cross. He sees this as the ultimate glory. Look how much I love you. Look at angels. Look at the devil. Look at this. Look at angels. I'm displaying my great love for these people that I've made in my image. How can we even imagine that kind of love? Why would he love us like that? We're made in his image as eternal creatures, yes, but why the love for sinners like that? Even before we accepted him or loved him, Christ died for us. He died for us to woo us to himself even before we wanted him. And it's an amazing thing. Now, when I come back, I forgot to bring the picture with me of the raising of the cross by Rembrandt, but we're going to start station number 13 with that image. And I want to show you who really put Christ on the cross and how profound this painting is. And I just want to close with this one. Even nature rebelled when Jesus was dying on the cross. When he hung and died on the cross, even nature rebelled. The rocks broke, the sky went dark. It's like, no, how can you kill the one who created us and did all of this? Even nature rebelled. And I have a talk that I give called What Jesus Saw from the Cross. And one of the things he saw was the thief, the good thief on the side, who said, remember me in your kingdom. I'm a wicked man, but you are not. Remember me in your kingdom. He had a moment of revelation. He didn't say, I accept you as my personal Lord and Savior and ask you into my heart like Protestants would say. He didn't say anything. He just says, you're innocent. I'm guilty. Remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said, today you'll be with me in paradise. And the soldier who put the lance into Jesus' side, he said, surely this is the Son of God. This was all the moment of all of space and time, eternity, and all intersected where God saved us from our sins.